Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Occult Think Tank. My name is Greg. In this video, I am going to get into a subject that is very deep, and it is the subject of free will versus determinism. Now, I have always thought that we have to have free will. However, upon examining this subject, I have come to realize it is not that cut and dry, because free will can also be termed as libertarianism. A libertarian insists that human beings are agents and that agents have special causal powers. They can initiate causes, events on their own account, and therefore free to shape the future. Hard determinism. A hard determinist believes that the past is completely determines the future. Since all future events are caused by past events, the future is causally determined. It is not within our power to shape the future. Free will is an illusion. Soft determinism. A soft determinist holds that we can have free will even if the future is determined. We are free and responsible for our actions as long as these actions are caused in the right way. There is also interdeterminism or indeterminism. An indeterminist denies that the past has any strong effect on the future. According to indeterminism, at least some of the events in the future are not caused by events in the past. The future is somewhat random and unpredictable. This avoids the threat of determinism. So it raises the question of where do you fall in this? Maybe to help clarify things a bit more. Free will, in this definition, is the ability and power to think, choose, and act voluntarily. Human beings can be the authors of their own actions, and to freely reject the idea that human actions are determined by external conditions or fate. Whereas determinism, in ethics, the view that human actions are entirely controlled by previous conditions, operating under the laws of nature. All events are inevitable consequences of precursory causes, often understood as denying the possibility of free will. Then there is this way. Determinism is the belief that everything, including human thought and behavior, is predetermined by the law of nature, fate, God, evolution, etc. Free will is the belief that we have total control over our own lives. Psychodynamic theory is deterministic because it states that behavior is controlled by the unconscious mind, something we do not have control of. And you cannot be having total control if you're controlled by something that is part of your unconscious mind, which it brings in the problem of what is termed the original sin, because this can also be termed as free will versus predestination, because in this sense, according to the story of Adam and Eve, everything that happened was set up by the character of God. Everything from the planting of the tree, both of them, to putting them there in that place. So everything that happened causatively started with the God. If the God hadn't put both of the trees there, they would not have been able to do something that the God didn't want. But if the God didn't want it, why would it put it there in the first place? Especially if this God is all-knowing, it had to have known by putting the trees there, both of them, which one would be chosen, because of it being all-knowing. Which means it was a setup. That everything that did happen, according in the story, was supposed to happen. Even going with the next chapter of the introduction of the serpent, that is another external force to the Adam and Eve characters that played a role in the events that followed. And that would be something that the God was also in control of. So what you have is, this is all determined beforehand. All they're doing is reacting to the conditions that are around them at that time. And everything we see is the past determines the future. The actions they took at one point determined where things go, cause and effect. So what you have is the idea of free will is actually an illusion. It becomes even more of an illusion when you factor in the idea of an all-knowing God. Free will can seem more plausible when you step outside of religion and you go more toward what is seen as life, the causality of life, the choices that we are given. Like with religion, the choose a door, heaven or hell. But when you mark it like this, no one will logically choose torture. It just won't happen. They would always choose the pleasure over the pain. However, if you make it like that, then you don't know which door is going to where. You could think, because of what you saw there, that, okay, I'll just go to the door on the left and I'll be in heaven. But you could open the door and find it's that. That gets into the Schrodinger's cat aspect of which is which. But it all comes down to the thoughts that we have are determined by the things that we have seen or experienced beforehand. This is even present with the police. When there is a murder, they look for motive. They look for what led to this, cause and effect. It makes me question, do we have free will? Or is free will simply an illusion? That everything in life is determined by genetics, the culture you're born into, the experiences you have growing up? Or is it a type of what would be soft determinism? I'm on the fence as far as free will or soft determinism. A soft determinist holds that we can have free will even if the future is determined. We are free and responsible for our actions as long as these actions are caused in the right way. The thing is, I don't know. This is something I'm looking into, but it's a very deep subject and it gets very complicated because what we have is our society is based on the idea of free will. Everything in our society would completely collapse if you took the idea of free will and threw it away and put in instead the aspect of a hard determinism. Because that would mean you're not responsible for anything that you do, because all of the actions that you would take were determined beforehand that you would do it. This is something I don't agree with. But if you look at it from the aspect of religion, this becomes more plausible. Because there's also with religion the aspect of what is termed possession, and even the aspect with the alien subject of aliens interfering with a person's thoughts and so forth, or doing things, and the demon's idea of controlling someone's mind. If something else is controlling your mind or influencing your thoughts, then that's determinism. Your thoughts and actions are being determined by another. You don't have control. You can't say that you believe in free will or libertarianism and then at the same time espouse a hard determinism philosophy. These two are incompatible. The only way that you could potentially combine determinism with free will is with soft determinism. And that is where it really comes in, is are you going along with what would be hard determinism or soft determinism? You can't have, basically, there's the aspect of you can't have it both ways. If you're going to say people are responsible for their actions, full stop, then you're taking away the deterministic aspect, which then you're taking away the aspect of genetics, as well as even the aspect of vibration and the vibrational frequency. Because what about the possibility of somebody that the vibrational frequency is related to your mental state, and people that have a mental disorder wouldn't be able, they would be physically unable to get their thoughts and so forth into a place that would make it possible for them to vibrate at a higher frequency. So they are unable, because of physical or biological conditions that they had no control over. They can't do this ascending because their physical body is prohibiting them from being able to do that, like with suffering, for people that suffer from depression, clinical depression, that it is a condition that they have regardless of what's going on in their life. They're still feeling depression. There are ways and drugs that we have in our society now that can treat this. However, I have concerns regarding the use of drugs to alter a person's mind, because then it raises the question, who's in control? Are they in control, or is the drug in control? It goes back to when I tried taking Chantix in order to quit smoking. And the Chantix turned me into a monster. It turned me into somebody that I naturally, without the drug, that I'm not. Because it almost broke up me and my girlfriend when I was on that, because she said I became downright mean. I'm not mean. And that when I came home at one point and had said to her about, I had a wave of suicidal thoughts come literally out of nowhere. She flushed the pills that I had down the toilet. And that's it, no more. And I was fine with that. And within a few days, I was back to being myself. The thing is, when you have a drug like that, an SSRI drug, and it alters the mind that much, it raises the question, if a person takes an action at that time when they're under the influence of that drug that has altered their mind, like Chantix altered mine, or Zoloft, Paxil, so forth. What if some of these school shootings, or a lot of them, were perpetrated by, and the evidence does point this way, that the shooters were being treated with these SSRI drugs? Who was in control? Who was pulling the trigger, to use that term? Physically, it was them, but who was in control of them? Were they in control, or were the drugs? And if the drugs were in control, I contend you're talking hard determinism, because they had no control over what they were doing. They were being completely controlled by the events of that drug in their system. This gets very complicated. And if there is to use another aspect of the heaven or hell type of thing, if somebody is under the effect of an SSRI drug and they take an action, is it moral to torture them forever because of actions that were taken while they were under the effect of a drug that altered their mind? Or what if somebody was like a Richard Kuklinski, that because of the genetics that they were born with, and the childhood that they had, became a sociopath? Or, yeah, because I think psychopaths are born, sociopaths are made. So it would have been it was a combination of the genetics and the upbringing that turned him into the sociopath that he was. But is someone like that eternally responsible when the things that made them what they were predicated on the genetics they had in life, the upbringing they had, the nature versus nurture idea? There's far more to this than just the cut and dry, you made the choice, that's all there is. Because what caused the choice to be possible, to be even made? It gets very deep, and I'm not trying to say in this that I'm giving even a full analysis of the subject of predestination versus, or the free will versus determinism. But it is something that I'm curious. I'm going to be looking into it more. However, when you factor in everything with the God notion and religion, I don't think we can dismiss determinism as quickly as like I may like or the society may like. Because our society is based on the idea that you are responsible for your actions. Even though when the police are looking at like a murder, they look for what was the motive, what caused this event to happen, which is a cause and effect or a determinism type of line of thought. So it does seem incompatible that you can say, in one hand, you're looking at personal responsibility. On the other hand, you're looking at a deterministic cause and effect. This leads to that type of thing. Because if this leads to that, then the choices you made were all based on the situations that you were seeing at that time. I don't know. Feel free to leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section. Talk to you later, people.